lonely. This antidote isn't be social. In fact, the ancient Stoics discovered something counterintuitive about loneliness that modern self-help completely misses. While everyone tells you to join clubs, download dating apps, or force yourself into social situations, the Stoics understood that the deepest cure for loneliness begins in the opposite direction, by turning inward. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who had thousands at his command, wrote in his private journal about feeling profoundly alone. Seneca, surrounded by Rome's elite, understood isolation deeply. These weren't hermits preaching from caves. They were men immersed in society who discovered that loneliness has almost nothing to do with how many people surround you. It has everything to do with your relationship with yourself. The modern world treats loneliness like a deficiency disease, as if you're missing vitamin, people, and need to consume more social interactions to cure it. But this approach often backfires. You've probably experienced it yourself, surrounded by people at a party, yet feeling more alone than when you're actually by yourself, or scrolling through hundreds of friends online while feeling completely disconnected. The Stoics would say this happens because we're treating the symptom, not the cause. True loneliness, according to Stoic philosophy, stems from being a stranger to yourself, when you don't know who you are, when you're uncomfortable in your own company, when you need constant external validation to feel whole. That's when loneliness becomes unbearable. No amount of social interaction can fill that void, because the void isn't caused by other people's absence. It's caused by your absence from yourself. Epictetus taught that we have complete control over our internal world, our thoughts, judgments, and responses. Everything else, including other people's presence or absence in our lives, falls outside our control. When we base our sense of connection on things outside our control, we become vulnerable to loneliness. But when we cultivate what the Stoics called autarkia, self-sufficiency of the soul, we become immune to the kind of loneliness that plagues modern life. This doesn't mean becoming a hermit or rejecting relationships. The Stoics valued friendship and community deeply, but they understood these connections must flow from a place of wholeness, not neediness. When you're self-sufficient emotionally and psychologically, you engage with others from strength rather than desperation. Your relationships become about giving rather than taking, sharing rather than filling a void. The practice begins with what Seneca called voluntary hardship, deliberately spending time alone without distractions. Not alone with your phone, not alone with Netflix, but truly alone with your thoughts. This isn't punishment, it's training. Just as athletes train their bodies through controlled stress, Stoics train their minds through controlled solitude. Start with just 10 minutes a day of sitting quietly without any inputs. Notice the discomfort that arises. That discomfort is your mind revealing its dependency on external stimulation. Marcus Aurelius practiced a specific exercise each morning, examining his thoughts and preparing his mind for the day ahead. He would remind himself that he might encounter difficult people, that plans might go awry, that he might face rejection or criticism. By preparing mentally for these possibilities, he inoculated himself against the emotional turbulence they might cause. This same practice can transform your relationship with loneliness. Each morning, acknowledge that you might feel lonely during the day. Accept it as a possible experience without resistance. This acceptance removes loneliness's power to ambush you. The Stoics also understood that much of our loneliness comes from comparing our internal experience to others' external appearances. We see others surrounded by friends and assume they feel connected. We see couples holding hands and assume they're not lonely. But Seneca reminds us that every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new to the old and finds comfort there. Stop looking outward for validation of your experience. Your loneliness or connection isn't measured against anyone else's life. Another crucial Stoic practice involves reframing your relationship with solitude. Instead of viewing time alone as empty space to be filled, see it as sacred space for growth. Epictetus taught that difficulties reveal character. Solitude is a difficulty for many, which means it's also an opportunity. Use alone time to study philosophy, to write in a journal, to exercise, to create. transform loneliness from an enemy into a teacher. The Stoics believed in sympatheia, the interconnection of all things. Even in physical solitude, you remain connected to the larger whole of existence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural." This cosmic perspective shifts loneliness from a personal failing to a temporary forgetting of your place in the universal order. Practical self-sufficiency also matters. The Stoics advocated developing skills and knowledge that make you valuable to yourself and others. When you can cook your own meals, fix your own problems, entertain your own mind, and comfort your own sorrows, you become less dependent on others for basic emotional and practical needs. This isn't about rejecting help. It's about being capable of self-help when needed. The Stoic approach to loneliness also involves radical honesty about relationships. Many people maintain superficial connections out of fear of being alone. They accept poor treatment, stay in unfulfilling relationships, or pretend to enjoy activities they hate, all to avoid solitude. The Stoics would say this is choosing slavery over freedom. Better to be alone and authentic than surrounded and false. Seneca wrote letters to his friend Lucilius about the joy of true friendship. But he also warned against desperate attachment. He advised cultivating the kind of character that attracts quality people naturally. When you develop wisdom, kindness, courage, and justice within yourself, you become someone others want to be around. But more importantly, you become someone you want to be around. The ultimate Stoic cure for loneliness is to realize you're never truly alone. You carry within you the accumulated wisdom of every book you've read, every experience you've had, every person who's influenced you. Your mind contains multitudes. When you learn to access this internal richness, solitude becomes not empty but full. This doesn't happen overnight. Like any practice, it requires patience and consistency. Start by scheduling regular time alone. Not as punishment, but as gift to yourself. Use this time for activities that build your internal resources: reading, philosophy, writing, meditation, exercise, and creative pursuits. Notice when you reach for your phone or seek a distraction. That reaching is loneliness trying to assert itself. Gently return to yourself. The Stoics knew that humans are social creatures. They didn't advocate permanent isolation, but they understood that healthy relationships require healthy individuals. When you cure loneliness at its root, by becoming comfortable with yourself, developing self-sufficiency, and finding meaning in solitude, you transform from someone who needs others to someone who chooses others. This shift changes everything about how you relate to people and how they relate to you. The cure for loneliness isn't more social interaction. It's a deeper self-connection. It's not about finding the right people. It's about becoming the right person. Someone who's whole whether alone or with others. The Stoics discovered this truth over 2,000 years ago. In our hyper-connected yet deeply lonely age, their wisdom offers not just comfort but transformation. The next time loneliness visits, don't run from it. Sit with it. Learn from it. Let it teach you the art of being alone without being lonely. That's the Stoic cure no one talks about, because it requires the one thing our culture fears most: genuine solitude and the self-knowledge it brings.